The marble floors of the bright chain tower gleamed like liquid silver under the morning light. Every reflection, every step seemed to echo the pulse of a company on the verge of something monumental. Today wasn't just another day at the firm, it was the day. A $200 million deal with Arcadia Investments was about to finalize, and the boardroom upstairs was already alive with executives rehearsing talking points, checking figures, and ensuring every slide of the presentation was flawless. Daniel Harlow, the man at the center of it all, stepped out of the elevator with the quiet authority of someone who didn't need to announce his power. His suit, tailored in dark navy, contrasted sharply against the brightness of the lobby. He looked every bit the billionaire CEO, calculated, unshakable, and impossibly focused. To most, he was more machine than man. His assistant, Julia, matched his pace as she handed him a tablet. "Everything's set, sir. The Arcadia team lands in 30 minutes. They'll meet us in Conference Hall B." "Good," he said curtly. "Has the latest valuation been adjusted for currency fluctuation?" "Yes," CFO confirmed. "Also, your blood sugar was low yesterday. Maybe grab a coffee before the meeting." He gave a brief nod, not out of agreement, but acknowledgement. Coffee wasn't a luxury for Daniel, it was a pre-fight ritual. Every major decision in his empire had begun with that one bitter sip at the calm before the storm. He walked toward the lobby cafe tilde copyright, his polished shoes tapping rhythmically. The cafe tilde copyright was sleek, minimalist, and silent, except for the low hum of the espresso machines. His usual barista, Mia, wasn't there. Instead, a new girl fumbled nervously behind the counter, trying to wipe down a spill before anyone noticed. Her apron was too big, her hair tied in a messy bun that seemed to betray her exhaustion. The name tag pinned crookedly to her chest read Leela, a trainee. Daniel didn't waste time. "Black coffee, 2 shots, no sugar." She looked up, startled perhaps by his tone, perhaps by recognizing who he was. Everyone in the building knew Daniel Harlow. The security guard straightened when he passed. Even the cleaning staff spoke his name with hushed reverence. "Yes, sir." Right away, she turned to the machine, fumbling with the buttons. The hiss of steam followed, but then a loud sputter interrupted the silence. A stream of coffee spilled over the counter, pooling near Daniel's hand. Her face flushed crimson. "Oh no, I'm so sorry. I pressed the wrong button." Daniel's eyes narrowed slightly, then pressed the right one. His voice wasn't raised, but it carried that cutting calm that could freeze a room. Leela wiped the counter hastily, avoiding his gaze. She fumbled again, her hands trembling. Daniel sighed audibly, glancing at his watch. He hated inefficiency. Every wasted second was money, reputation, control slipping through invisible cracks. As she tried again, he noticed her breathing quicken. She was panicking now, the kind of panic that only made mistakes multiply. And when the second cup came out weak and watery, he set his jaw in irritation. "Just make it again," he said, clipped and cold. She nodded mutely, her throat tight. Her heart raced, not just from embarrassment but from something deeper. Something about his tone reminded her of her old boss, the man who'd bark orders until her small startup collapsed under pressure. Daniel folded his arms, his gaze heavy. The silence stretched. She felt his disapproval before he even said a word. Then suddenly, something inside her broke. She straightened her shoulders, looked him in the eye, and said quietly but clearly, "That's the wrong trick." For a moment, he thought he'd misheard. "Excuse me?" "The way you're standing there," she said, her voice trembling at first but gaining strength. "Trying to make me nervous so I work faster. That might work with people who are afraid of you, but fear isn't how you get someone to do their best." The cafe tilde copyright went deathly silent. A security guard near the door froze mid-step. The other barista stared as if she just witnessed someone challenge gravity itself. Daniel tilted his head slightly, intrigued despite himself. "And how exactly, when you know how leadership works?" "Because," Leela said, her eyes steady, "I used to be a manager too. A small design team may nothing like this." She gestured around at the opulent lobby. "But my boss never scared us into working harder. He made us feel like what we did mattered. Fear is easy, sir. Respect is hard." Her voice softened at the end, but her words hit like steel. Daniel studied her in silence, the seconds stretching thin. There was something strangely familiar about her tone, a raw, unfiltered honesty, the kind he hadn't heard in years. Not from board members, not from advisors, not from anyone who wanted something from him. Finally, a faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, not amusement, but curiosity. Interesting perspective, he murmured. What happened to his company you managed? Her gaze flickered downward. The pandemic happened. We lost investors. Everyone had to find whatever work they could. So broken bar, here I am. He nodded slowly, almost thoughtfully. I see. She handed him the new cup of coffee, perfectly brewed this time. He took it, looked at her again, then turned to leave. But as he walked toward the elevator, something inside him shifted, a rare, almost imperceptible doubt. Upstairs, the boardroom was a whirlwind of screens and numbers. Executives rose to greet him. His CFO, Mason, handed him a folder. All ready, sir. Once you give the green light, we sign, and the $200 million deal goes through. Daniel nodded absently, flipping through the pages. Everything looked perfect, at least on paper. The Arcadia team arrived, led by Victor Lane, a charismatic investor with a grin that could melt tension like ice in sunlight. Daniel, always a pleasure, Victor said, shaking his hand. You've built quite an empire here. Daniel smiled thinly. Thank you, Victor. Let's make it bigger. The meeting began. Hours of negotiations, valuations, and forecasts. But Daniel wasn't entirely there. His mind, against his will, kept drifting back to the lobby cafe, told to copyright. To Leela's words, fear is easy, respect is hard. He watched his employees carefully now, the way Mason flinched when he spoke, how Julia's pen trembled slightly when she handed him notes. Had he really built his empire on fear? When Victor leaned back and asked, so, Daniel, tell me, how do you keep your team loyal after all these expansions? Daniel froze. He had answered this question countless times before, but now, the words felt hollow. He glanced around the table. Every smile was tight. Every nod was rehearsed. Not one person in the room looked genuinely inspired. He closed the folder slowly, feeling something unexpected stir in his chest. A shame. You know, Daniel said finally, his voice quieter than usual. I'm not sure I can answer that honestly right now. Murmurs rippled through the room. Mason blinked in disbelief. Sir? Daniel looked at Victor. Loyalty isn't built on numbers or incentives. It's built on trust. And I think somewhere along the way, we lost that. Victor raised an eyebrow. That's an interesting thing to admit during a merger meeting. Daniel gave a faint, rueful smile. Maybe it's time for some honesty in business. He stood up, shocking everyone. Gentlemen, if you'll excuse me for a moment. Without waiting for a response, he walked out, past the stunned board members, past the whispering assistants, past the gleaming glass walls that reflected a man suddenly unsure of the empire he'd built. When the elevator doors opened again in the lobby, Leela looked up from the counter and froze. The CEO, the same man she'd practically scolded minutes ago, was walking straight toward her. He stopped at the counter. The entire cafe tilled a copyright went still again. Miss Leela, was it? Yes, a broken bar, sir? He looked at her for a long moment, then said quietly, you might have just changed the direction of a $200 million deal. Her eyes widened. What? Daniel checked his watch, ignoring the stream of notifications lighting up his phone. Finish your shift, then come upstairs. I think you and I need to have a real conversation about leadership. And for the first time that day, the unshakable CEO of Bright Chain Corp smiled, not the tight, strategic kind used in boardrooms, but something genuine, something human. Leela stared after him, stunned. She had no idea what she'd done. But upstairs, in the boardroom of glass and steel, Daniel Harlow was about to make the boldest move of his career, all because a trainee barista had dared to tell him he was using the wrong trick.